They literally told me, you seem like a smart guy, like go on the internet and try and figure out as much as you can. They kind of gave me some broad, guidelines as far as they told me to, aim for 45 grams of carb per meal. They told me to take 4 units of insulin with every meal and to take 15 units of long acting. And that was it. They pretty much just left me to my own devices. So I'm just back at home within less than 24 hours with no idea what I'm doing. And all of a sudden this diagnosis of having a chronic disease. For like several months, I had all of these different symptoms. Prior to my diagnosis. So I was diagnosed almost exactly 2 years ago. At the time I was 34. I didn't have any other health issues or anything like that. I'd been vegan for 12 years at this point. I had plenty of other bad habits, and I was really like a junk food kind of vegan, but no health problems, nothing like that. And just over the course of several months, started losing a lot of weight. I was really irritable, like little things would just get me so irritated. I was falling asleep constantly, having to use the restroom constantly, and drinking tons of water and just eating tons and tons of food, and the weight just kept dropping off. And really at that time, I was the kind of person who just ignored things like that, like never went to the doctor. I have a job that can be really stressful sometimes, so I had kind of thought that maybe this was just stress related and stuff like that. So I really just ignored all of these signs for a really long time. And then one night I was dropping a friend off after work and I drove in front of traffic and got into a car accident. My car got totaled. The next day I went to go see a doctor. So I didn't have health insurance or anything at this point. Like I literally was the kind of person like did not go to the doctor. If something was really wrong, I would go to like a clinic, walk-in clinic, pay, $80 or whatever and get on antibiotics if I needed them. And other than that, I just did not go to the doctor. So the next morning I went to a clinic like that. And they were like, we want to do an MRI to see if you have any internal injuries or anything like that. I was like, absolutely not. That's going to cost like $700, $800. And the doctor was actually really good about asking, why did I get in the accident, all this stuff. She was already kind of wondering what was going on with me. So at that time she said, what we can do is we can do a urinalysis. So we can check your urine and see if there's any blood in your urine. And that'll give us an idea of if there's any internal bleeding or anything like that. So I go and take that test. She comes back in the room and she's like, hey, are you diabetic? And I was like, no. And she's like, well, there's sugar in your urine. I don't know what to make of that. So she's like, well, let me go, check something out again. She comes back in with a glucometer, tests my blood, and I'm at like 470 or 480 or something like that. She's like, yeah, she asked me a couple questions. She was like, you're diabetic and you're probably type 1, honestly, based on, your health and other stuff like that. So she told me to immediately go to an emergency room. I went to the emergency room and they booked me. I was there overnight or whatever. That was pretty much it. I mean, that was my diagnosis story. So I had no insurance. I didn't have access to an endocrinologist or anything like that. They just gave me some insulin. They literally told me, you seem like a smart guy, like go on the internet and try and figure out as much as you can. They kind of gave me some broad, guidelines as far as they told me to, aim for 45 grams of carb per meal. They told me to take 4 units of insulin with every meal and to take 15 units of long acting. And that was it. They pretty much just left me to my own devices. So I'm just back at home within less than 24 hours with no idea what I'm doing. And all of a sudden this diagnosis of having a chronic disease. When they released me from the hospital, I was probably sitting somewhere around like 160-ish, something like that. During that time, like really my numbers were all over the place in the beginning. Like I had no idea what I was doing. They were never below like 150. The 300s, 200s was kind of more normal. And then, a lot of times when I wake up, we were around 150, 160 and never saw below that at all. But I was generally like in the high hundreds to like low 300s for a while until I kind of figured out what's going on. My A1C at the time of diagnosis was like a 10.8. Like I said, they had told me to aim for 45 grams of carb per meal. And prior to this, I had never paid attention to macros or anything like that. This is all totally new to me. So once I started doing that, I started to realize like that it was going to be very difficult to keep eating like a vegan diet. Like there was some things I ate tons of vegan, like junk food, like Cliff Builder bars and energy drinks. And I ate more or less a standard American diet, only I was eating, vegan stuff. It was purely like an ethical thing for me. that was weird, like trying to figure that out. But I loved like eating stuff like fruit, and I'd be in Whole Foods trying to buy food or something like that, and I'd be looking on my phone like, how many grams of carb are in like a banana or something? It's like, oh damn, there's 25 grams of carb in this. Like, how am I going to incorporate this into a meal? And so it was just very, very hard. I felt like I was very restricted, trying to adhere to those guidelines, and or even coming below it. My train of thought at the time is like, if I can just eat less carbs and my blood sugar will be better. So that was really a frustrating experience, especially not being able to eat fruit or large quantities of fruit. Just really bummed me out. So I kind of just tried to work around their guidelines for the first few weeks, like maybe 3 weeks or so. And I joined some of these Facebook groups for like vegan or vegetarian diabetics. And I asked a question on there one day. Like, I literally was like, how do you eat fruit? Like, I want to eat fruit. And somebody at that point, actually multiple people were like, you have to check out Mastering Diabetes if you want to eat fruit. I found Mastering Diabetes on one of their website, and I started reading the first page. And honestly, like, it sounded like complete new age, like pseudoscience. Like, I was like, this is not real. Like, this is total BS. I really didn't believe it. Like, honestly, like, my BS meter went off, and I was like, there's no way. You got to eat more carbs. It just didn't make sense to me. You're going to eat more carbs, you have better blood sugar. So I started experimenting with that, like kind of trying to disprove it. I was like, okay, I'm going to see what happens. So I remember eating like some fruit, like some bananas or something, and then like checking my blood sugar like a couple hours later. Seriously, I remember thinking like, oh yeah, we'll see now. Watch, it's going to be all high. And then I checked my blood sugar and it was like totally like normal, like lower than normal. I was like, this is so crazy. What? And that was just from like one experience. So after that, I was intrigued. And so I just started experimenting with it on my own, started seeing the results. And then at that point I was like, I have to join, like, this is a game changer. So I joined the program like really quickly within a few weeks of being diagnosed as type 1. And I started to see those numbers decline. And it was just so shocking how quickly it happened. Like, it was just insane. Within like 3 or 4 days, I saw my blood sugar one time at like 74, like some number that I'd see now. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should keep an eye, see if it's going to come up, or maybe eat something. But I was so freaked out. Like, I live with my sister, and I was telling her like, oh, get ready to call, for help or something, because I don't know what's going on. Like, it just happened so rapidly. It was just such an insane transition. And then after that, just the amount of insulin that I needed just went down dramatically. The ability to control my blood sugar and for it to be like, much more predictable, just all of that happened so quickly. It was definitely the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I feel like it just made everything a million times easier. I can't imagine what this journey would have been like if I didn't find this, so early on. Like, they didn't put me on a sliding scale. They didn't tell me anything about carb, taking insulin for a certain amount of carbs or anything like that. But at the time, I was basically taking 4 units of insulin for every meal that I would eat. And I was trying to come in at around 40 to 45 carbs. So I was probably eating somewhere around 120 carbs a day or less. And at that time, so I was taking 4 units for each meal. So I guess that would put me at about like 1 to 11. And then they were putting me on, 15 units of basal insulin once a day. And then now I'm eating 550 to like 800 grams of carb, depending if I'm doing crazy trail running or hikes and stuff like that. Sometimes I'm coming back just eating all day. And I'm eating up to 800, grams of carb a day. I'm injecting anywhere between, right now I'm taking about 1 unit for every 35 grams of carb. That can go up as high as like 45 or 50 grams of carb if I'm doing really strenuous exercise. And then I'm only taking 8 units of basal insulin. My last A1C was, it's currently at 5.1. And the last time I actually had blood work drawn was about 6 months ago. But I have all the apps on my phone, my CGM and everything, so I can kind of keep an eye on it. So I'm at about 5.1. My fasting is usually around like 95 when I wake up, somewhere around there. And like I said previously, it was something like, in the high 10s, and then I was waking up, anywhere 150, 160 or higher. When I started, my weight was actually down. Like, I was definitely overweight and out of shape prior to me starting to lose weight from type 1 developing. So As I developed, my weight went down. And in the beginning, even transitioning to this lifestyle, my weight went down a little bit more because it was really hard to get all the calories in. You're not used to eating all the fiber and stuff like that. But once I dialed it in, and once I really got serious about other aspects of my health, like working out and stuff like that, then I got really conscious about how many calories I'm eating and all that stuff. So I had gotten down to like as low as 148, and now through very strategically planning out my meals and stuff like that, I'm at like 170, which is exactly where I want to be right now. Right away, I noticed just how much more energy I had. You know, I used to just be drinking like energy drinks and coffee throughout the day. And before all this happened too, I used to drink alcohol like, quite a bit, and I had other bad habits too. So I just lived a really kind of sloth life where I kind of did the bare minimum. And I swear, from eating this way, like I haven't had a drink in 2 years. I haven't wanted to. I just know that it's way easier to manage things without even drinking or anything like that. I have no desire to whatsoever. I have tons of energy. I get up first thing in the morning. Like I either go running or hiking. In pre-COVID times, I would go to the gym, but I'm always doing something, staying active. It makes such a big difference on the rest of the day. My insulin sensitivity and just keeping that nice straight line, that it just motivates me to go do it. And I swear, just from eating all the carbs, like I feel weird if I don't go out and go burn off that energy. Like it just motivates you to want to go and go expend that energy and go be active. So pretty much every day I'm out there doing something, pretty serious. I've never been this active before in my life. So day of eating for me right now, usually in the morning, I like to work out fasted. I think it just makes things way easier. I don't have to worry about insulin on board and all this stuff. So I usually go work out first, and then when I come back, recently in the mornings I've been doing a smoothie. So I usually do like almond milk and bananas and some peas and like maybe some hemp protein and some cherries or some kind of other fruit. I do that first thing. And then a lot of times I'll have like a second meal, like in between breakfast and lunch, of just like some fruit. And then for lunch, it'll either be like tons of more fruit and then like some home fries that I'll make, or something like that. And then a lot of times for dinner, I have a big salad and some steamed vegetables and rice or potatoes, or I make tacos a lot, curries. I generally keep it pretty simple. Like I don't go real crazy with the recipes. Every once in a while I will for fun, but I've kind of found a few things that are easy to cook, that make this whole thing easier and that I really enjoy eating. And I eat a lot of really simple meals of just fruit and vegetables, and with a strong emphasis on, calorie density to make sure that I don't have to, that I'm always, eating as much as I need to. This is the easiest way to eat a plant-based diet living with type 1, in my opinion. Like, I know that there's some people who would rather eat low carb for whatever reason they like that. But to me, it seems way more restrictive to only be able to eat things like, coconut meat and nuts and avocados and seeds. It just seems like there are not as many possibilities of things that you can eat. And for me, that was a big deal. I seriously started questioning whether or not I would be able to continue eating a vegan diet. And it was a very important thing that I was really dug in on for years and years and years. This is an ethical thing. And I really contemplated having to give that up. And that was like, it was so depressing. I'd be thinking about it all the time. Like, I'm probably going to start eating some animal products. And I really had an internal conflict with that. I really wasn't comfortable with that. Finding this method of eating, I think, was a complete game changer. And not only that, I feel like really lucky that I had already kind of started down this path years previous, because the transition for me, I know, is probably much easier than it is for some other people who have never tried to eat plant-based or anything like that, that really don't eat a lot of fruits and vegetables to begin with. I'm going to tell anyone who's considering it to definitely give it a try. I tell people this all the time, that I feel like I literally have the cheat code for living with diabetes. Like, I feel like I have this thing in my toolkit that nobody knows about. Like, people always, other type 1s I talk to on Instagram and stuff like that, and I've made friends out here and stuff. People are so afraid to eat fruit or eat certain things, eating lots of potatoes or eating lots of rice, because they're just seeing these huge spikes in their blood sugar. They're ending up with other health problems too as a result of this. And so I really feel like this way of eating is not only gives you a lot of freedom to eat a lot of delicious carb-rich foods, but also have lots of energy, and also prevent a lot of the most common complications of type 1.